Joining me now from Florida is the congressional candidate for Florida's 13th district, Paulina. Anna, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on, Stephanie.
So, Anna, I'm actually kind of surprised that the local news station picked up your story there because oftentimes we hear a lot of conservatives and Republicans talk about the censorship they face from some of these social media sites. And it seems like it's pretty real because it only happens to conservatives. You never hear liberals complaining about getting banned or censored
Absolutely.
or, not getting a blue check mark.
Absolutely. In fact, I was able to provide all the evidence to them. And I think that actually caused people to look at the situation and say, look, this is obviously not fair. It's not just about the blue check mark. We've actually had a few people being scammed by profiles pretending to be me, pretending to be my official congressional campaign. I've had other accounts pop up saying that they are me, that are putting out false perspectives on my campaign itself. And then also, too, it signifies to people, especially with, the younger generation communicating so heavily on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that there's not actually a congressional race happening. So if you look at someone, for example, like Madison Cawthorn's page, it'll actually say on the top left-hand corner, underneath the blue check mark, North Carolina congressional candidate, and then it has his district. It's not showing that for my race, or essentially for this actual race as a whole. So what it's saying is that there's not an actual campaign or a congressional race happening. And I will add, too, that all of these three Republican candidates, to include myself, are in all the Tampa Bay region. And this is one of the most important locations for the 2020 election cycle.
How long have you been trying to get verified? And I actually was pretty shocked to learn that you weren't verified. You have almost 200,000 followers. I've known you for a couple years. I've interviewed you several times. Like, you've been published before. Your name's in dozens of articles. You've been on national news many, many, many times. So, looking at the criteria, you should be verified.
I should be verified, and I can tell you that from the time that I started my race, that I did start trying to get re-verified again at that point in time, and that was really the correspondence that I was able to submit to most news organizations that are choosing to cover this. And I will say that what's really alarming about this is I finally got Twitter to respond and say that after the primary election that I would be verified, pending that I was the primary candidate. So here I am, the primary candidate. Obviously, we have an election in 44 days. I'm still not verified. And again, we have people that are posing as me on the internet, people that are scamming people who are trying to actually donate to my campaign. And then also, too, it's indicating to people in the district that there's not an actual congressional race happening in my location.
Yeah, and your story's interesting to me because, some people are at home like, oh, why does it matter if she has a blue check mark? I could care less. I have other things to care about. But at the end of the day, these platforms pretend they're all about free speech, and they're not, obviously, but also they impact and influence elections. And, you kind of see this as an in-kind donation to the other candidate. We've seen a lot of the things that they've been trying to pull in this election cycle. For example, Facebook's going to pull ads the week before Election Day because they want to make sure that there's not misinformation out there. They're coming up with new rules all the time. And yeah, they're their own private corporation and business. And, Republicans are against big government, but at the end of the day, they have huge influence on elections.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because this is something that's really impacting, I believe, our generation. Millennial and Gen Z will have to at some point legislate on this matter. So it's very interesting to see that even in regards to campaign finance, what constitutes an official congressional campaign and platform, that's not even written into legislation yet because it's such a new idea and it's such a new means of communication. But I do believe eventually that these social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram will all have to come under some form of guideline that we're seeing with the FCC and FEC really stipulating that, hey, if you have fair access to television rules, then it's going to have to stipulate on social media platforms as well, because there is such a strong use with the government and elected officials on these platforms.
Yeah, and so, the debate continues whether these social media giants are publishers or just platforms. And when they're a platform, they get special, they're exempted from special rules, and, they can't get sued technically for misinformation that's out there, unlike a news organization. So they want to have it both ways. They can't really control what's on the internet if they claim they're for free speech and that they're not like a publisher. So that's interesting. And there's a debate among Republicans whether big tech should be broken up or not. And I've talked to a lot of Republicans and lawmakers, and they don't really seem to be concerned. It's like they don't realize the impact social media has, especially on the younger generations, as you just pointed out.
Absolutely. And these are the same people, mind you, that because they're verified, they're not concerned about it. But the fact is that if I'm the nominee running on the Republican ticket to be a representative in Congress and it's happening to me, what about all those other people that don't have the platform that I do, that it's happening to on a regular basis? And just to give you some idea on how strong their power goes, again, this happened several months back, but this is really, I think, my strongest case and point, that we had Diego Aria, who's the former United Nations Security Council president. He was also, and he still is, very anti-socialist, very anti-Maduro. And when he posted about my campaign, in Spanish, mind you, they kicked me off. They actually marked my account as spam. And this is, mind you, my official campaign account. So if they're able to mark my campaign account as spam, and they're using that as a means for preventing the verification, and they're also to suppressing anti-socialist speech, then who exactly are they working for? And I think moving forward, this is something that we should be discussing, because essentially free speech is a founding principle of this country, and they're using it as, saying that they're private business. They're not. They are an official platform used by government officials and should be treated as such.
Yeah, and again, you have to wonder why some of these lawmakers are dragging their heels when it comes to tackling this issue. They either really just don't understand it that well. No offense, a lot of our lawmakers are a lot older. They're not millennials. There's very few young members of Congress, if you will. There's more, but not as many. Or they're collecting donations and stuff from some of these social media giants, so they don't even want to touch it. Well, Anna, we're totally out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.